Now, there are two types of gamblers in this world. You go all in or you hedge your bets. Design a ground-up electric car like the Honda E or the VW ID3 and fully commit, or produce a car that covers all the bases, that has a choice of petrol, diesel or electric, like the Peugeot E208 or the Mini Electric, and then see which one comes up black or red. I can never remember which one's supposed to win. BMW though, now there is an interesting take, because this is a company that bets on all the races, just to be sure.
First, we got the little i3. All electric from the outset, a design that still looks futuristic years after it was launched. A car that positively glows with lack of compromise. A car I love.
And now there is this, the BMW iX3, which, as its name would suggest, is a fully electric X3. A big selling conventional SUV that just happens to be powered by a battery. Now, although the i3 does have a bit of a cult following, BMW is rather sensibly offering something a little less progressive for its slightly more conservative customers. But before I give you the lowdown on BMW's first all-electric car for an incredible 7 years, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, then you get a lovely little notification when our latest video has landed.
Inside, this is a rather lovely place to be. BMW is building all iX3s in China, which is the biggest market for electric cars in the world, so it makes sense. But if you're worried that the legendary German build quality might have suffered along the way, you can rest easy. This looks and feels beautifully put together.
After all, we all love our iPhones, and guess what? They're made in China too. Now, there's also a pretty generous amount of kit in here with this lovely familiar infotainment system and a panoramic sunroof. I don't know how to get this across really, but it feels kind of dense, weighty in a good way, like it's built properly. It's just the kind of feeling that I expect from a premium manufacturer, and BMW nail this every time. And yes, it really does drive like you'd expect a BMW to drive, though not how you expect it to sound. Okay, BMW have worked with legendary film composer Hans Zimmer and its in-house sound designer Lorenzo Vitali to create this startup sound. Now, I'm no music critic, but I'm not sure that's their best work. Let's hear that one again, shall we? No, it's definitely not going to be the Christmas #1, that is it.
The black and silver 20-inch alloy wheels are exclusive to the iX3 and have what BMW describes as an aerodynamic design. Now, usually we take this kind of description with a generous pinch of salt. But according to BMW, these wheels add an extra 6 miles to the overall range.
You know, I really love that sort of attention to detail. I also think that the wheels look pretty gorgeous too. But overall, I mean, you can't say that the iX3 is particularly wow. But that, my friends, is the whole point of it. It's about not scaring people off.
Now, there are some compromises for full electric motivation. Although the standard X3 comes with 4-wheel drive, the iX3 is rear-wheel drive only, which may be a problem if your commute is a muddy field or for that couple of days a year when it snows. But for those of us who stick to something firmer, it's not going to be a deal breaker.
It'll do 0 to 62 in just under 7 seconds, and like all electric cars, it feels a lot quicker than those official figures suggest. Look, it might not have the neck-twanging acceleration of some of its twin-motor high-horsepower rivals, but you know, I think it just makes more sense as an all-round package. It's fast, but it's not silly. It's got enough power there when you need it on faster roads or for overtaking. But the suspension setup is absolutely spot on for these dreadful British roads. It's slightly lower than the standard X3, and BMW thinks that the iX3 has a far better front to rear weight distribution than the traditional version, and I have to agree with them on that. The only teeny tiny issue I have with it is that this artificial sound, which changes according to whether you're accelerating or braking, it's just a bit silly. Look, it might be that customers can't handle the silence after years of driving petrol or diesel cars, but piping in a synthesised droning noise, it just seems a bit odd. I personally think the joy of electric cars is in their silence. It's a nicer experience. Mazda also doing it with the MX-30, and I'm really not a fan of it at all. But come on, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Tell us what you think about electric cars having artificial engine noises pumped in. Silly or the way to go?
A far more useful feature that's fitted as standard on the iX3 is what BMW calls adaptive recuperation. Now, like all electric cars, you can manually choose the level of brake regeneration depending on how much you want to recycle the energy when you slow down back into the battery. You can also choose between 3 levels of recuperation to fine-tune the way the car behaves. And if you select adaptive, the car itself works out the best mode to be in to maximise the range.
It sounds a bit too good to be true, doesn't it? But it's actually an incredibly clever system. It actually uses a network of cameras along with the car's GPS system to work out the speed and distance of the other cars around you, whether you're going downhill, or whether you're going to Tesco Metro to get a bag of donuts. Okay, maybe it's not that clever, but it does do a fantastic job of juggling the regen to give you the maximum possible range. Good job, BMW engineering folk. It's ace.
So we've established that the iX3 will keep the driver happy. What about the rest of the family? Well, the boot can hold 510 litres of luggage with the seats up and a whopping 1,560 litres with them folded flat. I know, litres. Who knows what that means?
Plenty of room for a Ginny in here. Room for a couple of Ginnies, in fact. And here in the back, it's all good too. It's roomy, it's comfortable, it's practical, loads of spaces for me to store my constant supply of coffee and charge up on the go. There's very little that the kids will find to complain about in here. Although they will, of course, complain, because it's just what kids do, isn't it?
Under the floor is an 80 kilowatt-hour battery that gives the iX3 a range of 286 miles. That's very good mileage per kilowatt-hour for an SUV. It can be rapid charged at speeds of up to 150 kilowatts on a DC charger and up to 11 kilowatts on an AC charger.
Should I translate that? I think I probably should. What it basically means is that you can charge to 80% on one of those super fast 150 kilowatt chargers in just under half an hour. A more typical 50 kilowatt charger will take around an hour, and if you're plugging in at home or at work on a 7 kilowatt, it's going to take around 12 hours. One thing I want to show you that I really like though is this, look, little flippy buttons, there. I don't know why, but that fills me with joy, and it's just so much nicer than having to mess around pulling sort of socket tops off. I'm easily amused.
And if you're comparing it to rivals, the iX3's credentials look pretty good. It's nearly £7,000 cheaper than a Mercedes EQC, more than £10,000 less than an Audi e-tron 55, both of which have bigger battery packs but don't go as far on a single charge. Definitely something to think about.
But if you want to be one of the first to get your hands on an iX3, you can't be too fussy with your spec, because BMW are only offering it in Premier Edition and Premier Edition Pro, with the first of these models starting at £58,850. There will be less expensive versions to follow though, and those are expected to be the really big sellers. You'll get the same hardware, just different levels of kit.
Now, you could look at the iX3 and think that perhaps it's a bit of a compromise. It's effectively a battery and motor shoehorned into a car that was originally designed to have a petrol or diesel engine under the bonnet. It doesn't have four-wheel drive, and you don't get any of the big interior space advantages that you normally get with an electric-only car. Basically, most of the purpose-built stuff has four-wheel drive, bigger battery packs, and are more space efficient. They also have things like frunks and a bit more legroom.
But actually none of this really matters here. You know, it's not an era-defining car in the way that the i3 was, and actually still is, but look at it rationally. It's a practical, comfortable and beautifully made family car that just happens to be electric. It's also efficient, which matters. It will save company car drivers thousands of pounds in tax every year without looking out of place in the office car park. And for a huge amount of buyers, that's all the persuasion they will need to switch. Conservative electric. That's the iX3 all over, and I'm voting for it.
The good news is that BMW hasn't run out of brave pills just yet. The all-new, all-electric iX is coming in 2022 and is the very definition of different. And the bosses have told us they'll continue to build cars that will appeal to those of us who don't like to follow the crowd. If you want to know more and get all the latest on what's coming next for BMW, head over to electrifying.com. And don't forget to check out our videos of the Mercedes EQC and the Audi e-tron while you're here.